Hi there. So with this Loom, I'm intending to introduce you to creating your own custom functions in JavaScript for Google Sheets. Do you think it's a great way to get started with programming? Because alternatively, some of the things you'd need to learn, you have to learn a whole lot of stuff to do something not very useful or not very pretty or what have you. This is a nice way to really get started with the basics and produce some useful things, or maybe solve some of the problems that you have in your sheets. So let me show you quickly what you'd want to get this for yourself. Of course, you'll have the link most likely from me. So you want to make a copy via File, Make a Copy. That is so that the script editor, which I've now clicked and opened here before, that has the functions copies across as well. Otherwise, you have to copy this and copy that. Anyway, easier to just do make a copy here. With that out of the way, let me give a quick overview of what functions we have here. Trying to touch a few different areas, give a good start. So starting with the most simple, we've got our own custom-made gross profit function, which just takes cost of goods sold off of sales. So that's it there. So to use it, you would then yourself type in gross profit. It wouldn't auto-complete for you. So often what you do is find the one that you made and copy it across. So this is the function call, and it's the function definitions here. So yeah, and then of course once you've done it once, same as normal, you can drag it down or copy paste, etc., etc. Always looking towards the same places, that relative positioning. So that from the most basic one, we jump into something quite a bit more interesting, where the user can write a string. I'll just redo another address. Excuse me. And when that is inputted, it produces a full address in a standard format and gets the latitude and the longitude, and then a separate function for the distance between any two places. Okay, then from there to go something completely different, but that comes up quite a bit, I think, with spreadsheets, is string manipulation. So it is hard for say Excel or Google Sheets to always know how you want to manipulate your particular string input strings, and yet that is where JavaScript and programming languages shine, is definitely with string manipulation techniques and so on. So it's all there already. So we'll touch on that. And then for more advanced string manipulation, there's a thing we call Regex, which is across different programming languages, but it has such a wealth of things you can Google to try different Regex results. Regex being the best way to describe it is it's like a clever filter on strings, where you can say, let there be make sure that this thing has 3 numbers followed by a letter, and then an @ sign, and 2 numbers and any number of letters after, and so on and so forth. So it's what is used to do that kind of stuff. In this case, we've got it to validate whether or not the input here is a valid email address or not. It's not completely foolproof, but it would certainly catch a few errors or mistaken inputs along the way. So those are them. Let's climb in, starting at the beginning, the profit function. That's it. So it's good to then understand from this the general structure of all functions, of our functions. You've given the function, you've given it a name, and a certain number of inputs. Depending on the thing, there could be more, but in this case, only 2. We've called them a reasonable name that fits with what we want it to do. Sales, cost of goods sold, and we want to return. So we're taking in 2 values. We want to return one value that is sales minus cost of goods sold. And that means that when we say gross profit A4, B4, it will take B4 away from A4, resulting in 40. Okay. And so now to build on that with something more interesting is the get maps info. Note that we are returning an array inside another array. That is just because Google wants it to be possible to return a whole block. So if we had a second row, we would have another array inside here. We only want one array. That's why it returns an array inside an array to be the row. And then array is something that you'll have to definitely learn even in the very basics, but think of it as a list. An array is a list. And an array of arrays would be a list of lists and so on. But there's definitely better ways to gain a full understanding of that. So just notice here how few lines of code was able to get us that neater address and the latitude and the longitude. That is some of the nice things about using modern code and the libraries and so on attached to it. In this case, we are using maps because Google talks well to Google. We don't even need to import it like a library. It's just available to us. Once you've looked at some docs, a bit of Googling, you'd see other things you could do with this maps. And included then is similar things for sending emails and working with docs and so on and so forth. All those APIs are available within AppScript, but we're just scratching the surface here. So with that in mind, sometimes it helps to know sometimes programming is a bit like accounting in that it's all a human invention. Humans invented that we should use the word new geocoder and geocode input and so on. Of course, well-written code is written in a way that makes these things understandable, but often it's a case of just reading up and finding out how did the humans that made this Maps API decide we need to call the different things we want to. And so I find that helps because it means that if you can copy and paste and use something enough times, you'll almost trick yourself into understanding it, into believing you understand it when all you really know is how to use it. But knowing how to use it is the job. That'll probably make more sense as you go along, but nevertheless. So I had to look up how to do geocoder to get the info, or look up how do I get the info from maps, and I was told, okay, I need maps.newgeocoder.geocode the input. What is the input? It is this rough string. So the geocoder returns many things, and we are only using a few of the things it returns. So we have our geocoder, and we say, okay, we're only interested in the first result. You know, Google likes to give us a lot of results. So we say geocoder results 0. Get us the first item in the list of results. And so from that first result itself had many things which we had to look up. I'll go into that a little bit more detail right at the end of how you find how to traverse these returned things. But for now, we know that what was possible in this case was we got first result.formatted address, which is what we put over there, and first result geometry location lat, and first result geometry location long gave us our lat and our long there. then that covers that, and then I've got a different function. Keep in mind then, these 3 results actually were produced by the one function that lives here. So it put one answer there, one answer there, and one answer there. Why is that? Because we've returned this array as a single row inside of the possible block. Okay, now the distance between points is what, oh, hey, Dylan, there we go, is what gives us these kilometers based off of that one and that one. Distance between points give us our 2 points, or our 2 places in this case, these 2 places. Now this becomes a nice example of readable code, and the fact that code can be quite a bit easier to read than it is to write. And that's a great learning opportunity then, to read code, trying to understand it and see if you can. And we're going to go through that now. So I'm not assuming any knowledge of JavaScript or programming in general. And yet let's have a look, because Google has written their code for us to use well, it is this readable. As in, we say, okay, we want our directions, and so we need our new direction finder from the Maps API, like we got the geocoder previously, and we're chaining a bunch of things onto that to sort of become part of this directions variable we have. We say set origin to something, set destination to something else, set the mode, and get directions. Now, if you were doing this on a with pen and paper and a calculator, you would basically need the same thing. You would need to know, well, where do you start? Okay, set origin is how they're asking, where do we start? Set destination is how they're asking, what's the end address? And then set mode should ring a bell to what you do on your phone when you need to set your navigate, whether you're going driving or walking. So, okay, that's what that's all about. So as you read this with no programming experience, you can sort of piece together what it's requiring in order to do what you wanted to do in the final result there, get directions. So that gives us this directions variable that we then use from here on out to get the specific thing we want, because we don't want all those waypoints and things like that. So we say, okay, our route equals directions, routes 0. Once again, we're just taking the first of many routes that Google gave us over there. We say our distance is the route, the first leg. I guess leg 0 gives us the whole thing as one distance calculation. Give us the distance as text, and that returns the distance. So of course you'd have to read the docs to see, to say it the way they want it said, but at the same time it sort of makes sense even to read it now. Okay, and so that's where we get these kilometers there. Okay, now jumping to something different again, string manipulation. Here what we're doing is, however the person writes it, we either capitalize each word or we make it all caps. So 2 different functions in this case. Let's go to capitalize. So for capitalize, and you'll find you have to do this quite a bit, quite often, is to move between arrays and strings. So I have a basically like a sentence, or a bunch of words with spaces between them. I want to turn that into an array that I can then work with, like to iterate over the array to do the same thing to each part of the array. So I turn it into an array by going input to lowercase. So I make all of them lowercase for this step, so that they're at least all the same. And I split it. And as soon as I split it, it changes from being a string into an array, and it's an array that is split with a delimiter of space. So at every space, there is a new item in the array. In other words, I've taken the group of words as one string and put each word as an element of an array. That is my words array. So then I need to do something to each of those words. So I can think firstly of what is the thing I want to do to one word. Well, each word, I want to capitalize that first letter of the word. So I create myself an internal function to be used here, capitalize one word. So how do I capitalize one word? Basically, I say, take that first letter of the word, so word naught. If the whole word is word naught is the first letter. So take that first letter, turn it to an uppercase, and basically replace the first one with this one. Okay, of course, the details of this you can check for yourself, but that's in the broad strokes what it's doing. And so I know how to capitalize one word. So now I go, okay, words array, map through the array and capitalize one word on each item in the array. And then when all of that is done, join it all back together with spaces between as a string. So I take the string, turn it to arrays, manipulate the arrays, put it all back together as a string. So that one was a little bit more tricky than the next one, which all caps is simply take the string and we use a JavaScript function available to us to uppercase, and that just does it for us. One liner there. And now for the last one of the examples, to introduce just a taste of Regex. As I said, it's not a case that I worked this whole thing out, though there are some tools that help a person do this as well. One that comes to mind is Regex 101. But nevertheless, often it's a case of Googling how do you get a valid email via Regex, and you'll pretty much have a string that you can paste. That is what we call the valid Regex. And our input string, if our input string matches this Regex, return true. If it doesn't, return false. And that's what gives us our checker there. Okay, now as just to sort of zoom in on one of these to give you a sense if you're trying to do some of the stuff yourself, I've got to touch on the execution log and how you would work towards one of these. For example, when you don't really know how to sort of zero in from this result to your final result. This is not the way we tend to build it in the beginning. In the beginning, you want to be logging things out and building up your thinking step by step. So I just want to run through it a little bit in detail before wrapping this one up. Okay, I had to start again with that last section. I was talking crud, basically. So, right, onto logging and then moving towards your final result. So you use your logger.log, or if you're doing browser stuff, it's console.log, but for Google Apps Script, it's logger.log. So we've saved it, and we've made sure that we're working on the function we're most interested in, and we run it. Then we can see the execution log, and we can see that we've logged my string, 1 Prince Street, Athlone Park. So that's how we can sort of talk to ourselves along the way before having a final result, the kind that we'd put in here. So it helps us to build up step by step towards there. Okay, so slightly pre-prepared something that would fail, and this is where I got a bit stuck at first, but it's sorted now. So we've got our directions and we want to get directions. So we've jumped there, and of course this will fail because you can imagine we haven't given it the starting point, ending point, or the mode, which we've established are things it's going to need. But we could still get so an error for most users is like an endpoint. That's when they call IT. But now that you're cracking slightly below the surface, errors is how you talk to the system on your pathway to getting it to work. You might have 10 errors. It's usually the first error caused the other 9, and you would work your way through the errors, perhaps Googling the error code or the error message to find your way through there. And that is very normal and everyday stuff. So granted, this doesn't work, and so we're fortunate, even before going to docs, as you do that, we get some help on how this pod works. So it logs how long it would take, Oh, that looks useful. Let me copy that and paste it. And so that tells me, oh, I need my set origin. Okay, so then I'll take the set origin. And so maybe I should show you that. So you could do these things straight all off that one directions. Or you could let directions sort of be a pause point that you've given a name and rather work off of that. So then that directions is the same as that. And so you can say directions dot set origin like that. Okay. Let's say const result equals. Okay, now we know we're going to want to do a few more things. Set destination. So hopefully the formatter will help me here. Oh, okay, yes, I know I'm missing a few things. Argument after, okay. Of all of this, that's very broken. Okay, and our set mode, I'll tidy up now, and then we'll not get those errors. Okay. And then get directions. Okay, I'm flying off the seat of my pants here, so I might need to pause it just now if I get myself a bit stuck. Okay, there they've even given us a hint on the other part, but I'll comment it out for now. Do I still have argument 58? Oh, okay, that's got no closing bracket for the logger. Yeah, it's happy now. Okay. This could certainly be neatened up. Is there a way to format all here? Format document, but it doesn't help me with that. But anyway, so I prefer to do it like this, and like that, and like that, and then format document. That's more like it. Okay. So in this case, then I will want to logger.log the result. Notice that it's grayed out, meaning it's something that I'm not actually using. I've instantiated it, but not used it. As soon as I use it, it's not grayed out anymore. That is grayed out because I'm no longer using that. Well, let me first use it. We're letting this, we're doing this my string here, where normally it would be an input, but we use it as a string here, so we don't have to keep jumping around. We can stay within this function, work out what we want to work out. When it works, then turn that into an input over there. Right, let me get to it. Console log our result and run it. Okay, that's a complicated thing. But it already gives you a sense. Like that I could paste into an editor and let it come out neatly or whatever. But you can get a sense that with this as a starting point, you'd be able to go, oh, okay, so the result that I got has got all this information. Now how do I get to not geocoded waypoints, not the summary. So for example, there's an end location that's lat and long, and so on. This video has gone on a little bit, so I'm not going to paste this into somewhere new, so on and so forth. But you can see already that in the logging of this early result, this get directions result, you get something that you then could work through towards being able to say something like first result dot formatted address that'll be in there somewhere, and first result dot geometry dot location let, and so on. So it is in this process of logging the earlier steps that will guide you into how to have your structure for the later. So I think I'm just going to touch on what this really means. It means this being an object, we can look in the object and go geocoded waypoints, for example. And then geocoded waypoints has got an array. So we'd say, okay, geocoded waypoints 0. And then be able to say, if it's inside, if something inside of it is an object, for example, say we did the same thing to get to end location, we could go end location dot let is basically saying focus on the let answer inside end location. So first result dot formatted address, there would be a first result equals that, and we would say, no, okay, but I want the one inside there called formatted address. So there's just this dot notation, very badly touched on by me, but that is the method by which you would sort of navigate the response to get the pieces out of it that you want. So I don't think I'm going to go much further than that. I think it's a good enough starting point for you, and I do hope that you'll explore further and at the very least take your impress your loved ones with your new Google Sheets Kung Fu. Cheers for now. Keep well.